Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palmer. Chris Palmer, how are we doing today?
Doing good, man. Week one in the books, and what a week it was.
What a phenomenal week one, and we want to get right into that. So let's get right into our week one recap, starting with the Thursday night game. My Baltimore Ravens falling to the Kansas City Chiefs. Your thoughts on that game, CP?
What a game between the two of you. That was two of the top teams in the league going after each other, and that was the epitome of it is a game of inches.
It was, oh man, Isaiah Likely catching what would have been a game tying touchdown in the back of the end zone with his toe on the line. Game over. You can't get any closer than that.
Nope. Next time wear white cleats.
That's what that's what Mahomes said. Oh, nice. So that was the first game of the season, and what a game it was. And then we had a Friday game in Brazil. The Green Bay Packers going to play the Philadelphia Eagles, and what a game it was. But the Eagles ultimately came out on top, 34-29. But the Packers did suffer a key injury in Jordan Love. He has an ACL sprain, and going to be
It was a sprain to the MCL. He'll be out for, I believe, 3 to 4 weeks. I think.
Yeah, so that's a tough loss for the Packers right there, but he will come back soon enough.
Yes.
But man, what were your thoughts on this game in Brazil?
I think the risk was not worth the reward. Personally, I think the NFL really didn't do their homework on who to put where and where the game should actually go. Um, Overall, it was a very well competitive game, but still, I think I understand the idea of wanting to internationalize the league. You have to do a little bit more thorough research before you throw two green teams in a stadium where the color green is banned.
It just seems so careless by the NFL, but I totally agree with you, and I want to add to that too, where it's like in order they need to do their homework because that was a soccer stadium, and the field was not really meant for NFL football.
No,
And the players had a tough time really getting traction on the ground. You saw a lot of players sliding. Ultimately, Jalen Hurts, he was able to run it very effectively, and so was Saquon. Saquon had 3 touchdowns, so it's like you just run it because everyone else is going to be slipping and sliding. So um, I hope that's another thing that the NFL considers going forward when it comes to international games. But all in all, a very entertaining game to watch.
100%. And to Jordan Love, I hope a speedy recovery and a full recovery before you come back. I think
Abs-
mine before the game.
Absolutely, 100%. So let's move on to Sunday's slate of games, starting with down south, where the New Orleans Saints beat the Carolina Panthers 47-10 in an absolute spanking. Uh, this was not a great showing by the Carolina Panthers.
No, another rough season ahead for Carolina, and it looks like Derek Carr has set his feet in New Orleans. It looks good. Now, again, the Panthers have a rough road. This is going to be a harder game for the Saints going into Dallas. But eyes on Derek Carr, man. He can play.
Absolutely, man. And anyone against that Carolina defense, just bet the money line on Carolina, man. Just keep betting against them, man.
Rough road.
It's going to be a rough season and a long season for the Carolina Panthers. It's also going to be a long season for the New York Giants as well. They lost to the Minnesota Vikings 28-6. So CP, it's funny because last week we said that this was one of the ugly side of the NFL. What was it? Mike Francesa, talk show radio sports analyst guy in New York, said it was an epitome of ugliness, and I was like, I wonder where he got that
No
from.
wonder where he thought that.
But this was not a good game for the Giants, but a good game for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, only the Giants can make Sam Darnold look good. He looked like an All-Pro
He
on
looked like
Sunday.
an all-pro
But
against the
at the
Giants.
loss of Jordan Addison, hope he is ready to play this week. He is questionable as of right now.
Yeah, you hate to see week 1, 2, but we hope all the injured players that we wish them a very speedy recovery. So let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the New England Patriots, and the Patriots come away with a win over the Bengals, 16-10. Cincinnati just could not get their offense going at all.
No, and I watched some highlights. It looks like Joe Burrow's still feeling some pain in that throwing wrist. I think that might be a concern moving forward, but I would throw this one up to as the upset of the week by far. Um, Hopefully the Bengals can turn it around this week because they have a hard game and that defense is going to be coming.
Oh yeah, it's not a good matchup for the Bengals. Early on, they got to play the Chiefs this upcoming week. That's a game that we're going to be talking about later on. But it is not looking good. But good for the Patriots to get a Week 1 win. Uh, let's move on to Atlanta, where the Pittsburgh Steelers came away with a Week 1 win over the Atlanta Falcons, and Justin Fields starting at quarterback for Week 1.
Yeah, it was a good, strong win. Justin Fields, 73% completion rate, 156-yard passing. No touchdowns by the offense, though. So that remains to be seen. Chris Boswell, shout out. You were an ace, 6 for 6 field goals. You gave us all of our points. As a Steelers fan, we cannot expect Chris Boswell to be an ace all year. He has not been an ace his entire career. He does miss field goals. He does miss makeable field goals. But he is extremely effective, 97, 98% throughout the year. He doesn't miss a lot, but he does miss. We need to be able to focus and get offensive points. I am confident that that will come, but they need to learn how to score points before Chris Boswell comes on the field.
100%. That's definitely a room of improvement that the Steelers need to work on. But hey, it's a long season, and there's plenty of time to improve on that. All in all, great solid win for the Steelers. They now lead the AFC North after Week 1.
Again.
Again. Let's move on to the AFC South matchup that we discussed last week. The Houston Texans taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Texans coming away with a win, 29-27. A very hard fought game, a very competitive game between these two teams.
Don't sleep on Indiana, guys. They are a sleeper cell. Anthony Richardson is healthy. He may. I don't know if anybody watched the highlights. Did you watch the highlight of that game?
I did. Yes.
You see that one pass that Anthony Richardson made. He was rolling out to his left. He had a lineman coming down, and he threw off of his back foot, and it stayed in the air for 62 yards and landed in the pocket for a touchdown. It was one of the most incredible feats of athleticism I have seen in a stand-up quarterback in years.
It's funny.
Don't sleep on the Colts.
Anthony Richardson came off
a concussion.
Well, he came off the concussion, but he also, after he threw that, went to the quarterback bench, and Joe Flacco said, I don't think I've seen a farther pass thrown in my life.
Right. I don't think anyone's ever seen a ball go that far with sheer air time. Like, everyone's seen far passes go, but a lot of times they're on a descent. That ball went up for majority of the time that it was for distance. It was just going up.
that must have been a thing to see in the stadium too, where it just you see this ball just absolutely just arc all the way to the end zone
and then just land effortlessly in the receiver's hand for a touchdown.
Yeah, I will say the Colts. I don't think that they're going to be a team that's going to be worried about scoring points. It's just their defense that they need to improve on. They can score points to win games, but they just really need to tighten up on defense because, I mean, hey, 2-point difference against the against the Texans. That's pretty damn good. That's pretty damn good.
That's 10 rounds with a huge team.
Absolutely. So let's move on to another game that went 10 rounds, and that was the Arizona Cardinals against the Buffalo Bills. Bills ultimately won 34-28, but this was not an easy win for the Bills. They had to come back. They had to make a comeback, and they had to really show up against the Cardinals, who came out very hot in the first half of this game.
Well, that's what we see now. We see a different side of Arizona, and we see a different side of Buffalo. Arizona is the same team that has been scrappy and is going to fight, and the Bills are now having to fight off that hole that is no longer having Stephon Diggs. They no longer have their one-punch knockout. And that was now the same concern that we had for Kansas City when they got rid of Tyreek that they proved wrong is now for Buffalo. You no longer have your one-punch knockout, so what are you going to do? And if that's foreshadowing for the season, they're going to struggle.
Yeah, but it looks like a lot of the young wide receivers are looking to step up. Keon Coleman had a really good game against the Cardinals, so it's like let's see them, keep stacking wins, keep stacking quality wins, and making sure
Hmm.
that you're getting the balls to your receivers and developing that connection with them.
This is definitely a quality win, but this is a game they should have won. I'm more impressed at the fight that Arizona put up. This is a good loss for Arizona.
Oh yeah, and I mean, schedule makers didn't make it easy for them because Arizona goes from Buffalo and then they play the Rams in week 2. So it's not easy for Arizona, but they are a scrappy team as they have been in years past. So keep an eye on Arizona for this year. They may be able to surprise some teams.
They may upset a couple of teams that you don't expect.
So let's keep an eye on them going forward. Let's move on to Chicago, the debut of Caleb Williams, and the Bears coming away with the win, 24-17. But this was an ugly win for Chicago. If there's a good loss by Arizona, this was an ugly win by the Bears.
This was a totally unimpressive win. Totally unimpressed.
Now, what made it unimpressed for those watching right
Well,
now?
you can read Caleb Williams' stat line. He had 95 yards, no touchdowns. He was sacked 3 times, and he had a 48% QB rating by the end of the game. If the Bears didn't win that game, the Titans beat themselves. Will Levis played like shit. Point blank, the end. And when it comes to Caleb Williams, for the amount of shit that you spoke going into this year, for your debut to be that, you have a lot of growing to do.
Oh yeah. Like easily the Bears should not have won this game, but if it was a pick six and a punt return for a touchdown. Oh, sorry, it was a punt block for a touchdown, and that was basically the two game-changing points in the game. Um, Caleb Williams did not do anything to help the Bears win,
No, they almost
despite
won
being
in
the
spite of
quarterback.
him.
Exactly. So like, it's a very weird thing to kind of like wrap your head around, but it's like, no, that makes sense because he really contributed nothing to their win.
Correct. The team is ready to win. It's up to him if he's ready to win. He
Exactly.
needs to get up to the level that the team is at.
Mhm.
The team is ready. The defense is ready. The special team is ready. The offensive line could still use a little bit of work, but they need some form fitting.
Yeah.
So that'll get there. Caleb Williams, you need to know how to be the general that you claim to be. You have another couple weeks like this, the Bears are going to start scratching their heads as to why they got rid of Justin Fields.
Yeah. I'll
And they
be
may be
honest.
doing that already.
They may be doing that already. So we got to keep our eye on Chicago going forward. Titans, hey, no expectations this year, so fuck it.
Not much for you, but it's okay.
Let's move down south to the Battle of Florida, where the Dolphins played the Jags in a really good game, a very very solid game. Dolphins made the comeback from down 17-0 against the Jacksonville Jaguars and won 20-17. But I think the bigger news was what happened before the game.
Are you talking about when Tyreek got detained for not putting his window down?
Yeah. So Tyreek Hill, an hour and a half before the game, was detained just outside of Hard Rock Stadium. And I think him obviously having a big game coming back and his touchdown celebration with Jalen Waddle
That was the
handcuffing
master
him.
of petty.
I salute
He,
my cap to you, Tyreek.
I salute my cat. That was so petty, and the fucking Florida State police probably saw that and they were like, "We fucked up."
Oh my god. That
Uh,
was something. That what a way to start the 1 o'clock games with
what a way
Tyreek
to
Hill.
start the year with
It's
Tyreek Hill getting detained.
absolutely wild. The memes are just you can't write these memes yourself, man. You can't.
No,
Oh man. Let's move on to the West Coast with the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos, and the Seahawks coming away with the win, 26-20. But Bo Nix looking pretty he's solid. Nothing too crazy, but he looked good. Well, what were your thoughts on Bo Nix?
he had a solid debut. You know, his problem is he's playing a Seahawk team that's been together for a long time. Geno Smith is a well-aged veteran. He's playing well into his later years. Um, Bo Nix probably has some first game jitters, as any rookie would, understandably. You can't expect him to come out and have a stellar performance first game. But he took his loss on the chin, and, he seemed like he's ready to move on and get ready for week 2. So he shows a lot of maturity in taking this loss. So overall gameplay probably could have done more. Obviously, could have done better. But with the way he rolls off of a loss and goes into week 2, it's going to remain to be seen on how he can carry this team.
Absolutely. I think that's very well said. Hey, it's a long season. There's going to be a lot of games to be playing. And Seattle, it's a tough place to play for anyone, right? In
For
Seattle,
anyone.
the 12th man is tough. And so for you to keep it a close game against the Seahawks and kind of, really make it a 4-quarter game is very impressive. I mean, I don't think Bryce Young could even say that. So, but that's neither here nor there. But hey, let's keep an eye on the Denver Broncos, man.
There's some life in Denver.
There's some life in Denver with Bo Nix. Let's move back to the AFC West. The Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. It was all Chargers all day. Jim Harbaugh got the win as the head coach, 22-10. It was just all Chargers all day. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, they looked great in a Chargers uniform.
Yeah, congratulations to Jim Harbaugh, your first NFL win in 10 years. Congratulations, welcome back to the pros. When it comes to the Raiders, I'm sure you're looking over in New Orleans and wishing you never got rid of Derek Carr right now. But remember, you as a fan base ran him out of town. Let's keep that one very clear. You guys were over him.
Yeah, they got Kevin O'Connell starting for them. I think they are really, really missing Derek Carr. But
Sure
hey,
they are.
good win for the Chargers. Raiders, I don't think anyone believed in you.
It's going to be a long year for Vegas.
It's also going to be a long year for Cleveland as well. Dallas just came into town and they beat the shit out of them, 33-17. Deshaun Watson looked absolutely lost on that NFL field on Sunday. What were your thoughts on Deshaun Watson?
I don't have any thoughts on Deshaun Watson. I haven't had thoughts on Deshaun Watson since he came back into the league. Everyone tried to promote this man that he was going to be the guy he was for 1 year in Houston. No, that's not how it works when you take too much time off of the sport. The game moves forward and you stay where you were when you come back, and you are just an aged person now. Sorry, he's a pedestrian quarterback at best. He's had to restructure his contract 3 times, and he still plays like shit. So he could actually see himself off of Cleveland before the season's over.
You think Cleveland's looking over at Tampa and thinking, "Oh wow, we could have had Baker Mayfield."
That one bothers me because Baker Mayfield has gotten consistently better as a player throughout his entire career since coming into the league.
Yeah.
Even in Cleveland, he was getting consistently better.
He was.
As a player, he wasn't bringing the team many places, but he, as a player, was getting consistently better till now we see him at home in Tampa having the time of his life.
Oh, yeah. He is. Oh, speaking of Tampa, they absolutely beat the shit out of the Washington Commanders, 37-20, and what was it, Baker Mayfield, 289 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Right. So, like I was saying, the Browns are looking over in Tampa and they're like, "Why did we ever get rid of him for this hunk of trash?" But
they're kicking themselves.
Baker Mayfield found a home in Tampa. He and Mike Evans are a dynamic duo that is just explosive on the offense.
Mm-hmm.
That defense is just one solid unit of, we're not going to let you go anywhere and you're going to have to earn every yard. I had high hopes for the Buccaneers.
Oh, yeah, and they got a great matchup this upcoming week against the Lions. We'll talk more about that game, but the Lions played the Rams Sunday night primetime. Oh, what a game this was. Lions ultimately won 26-20 in overtime. But, man, this was a hard-fought game, a great game to watch. I'd say this was the game of the week. by far. But that's just my opinion. What were your thoughts on this game?
Very interesting game. Very interesting outing from LA. I did not expect the Rams to have Matt Stafford throw 49 times. 26 times went to Cooper Cup. Um, but overall, good outing by the secondary of the Lions. That's something you don't really hear from the Lions, is their secondary usually lacks. But for Jared Goff to be able to step back that many times, and you guys hold him to only 20 points, that shows really well. And when it comes to the offense of Detroit, David Montgomery is such a good fit. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs as a two-headed running core is going to be scary.
It's we're gonna talk more about them, but man, that combo is absolutely incredible, and I'm so looking forward to seeing it throughout the year. But man, what a win for the Lions! What a great win, and man, it's they put the league on notice. They said we are here, and the Lions are here in the NFL, and it's such a great feeling.
It's good for football when the Lions, the Bucs, are doing well.
Absolutely. Can you express that feeling to Jets fans? Because I don't think that they ever got that feeling ever. Uh, Aaron Rodgers made his Jets debut to the San Francisco 49ers. An absolute clobbering by the 49ers, 32-19 over the Jets. Oh, man, at least his Achilles didn't explode on national television.
I'm glad he lasted longer than 72 seconds, but he still didn't last the full game because he got pulled in the middle of the fourth quarter. You still didn't finish the game. So your debut, you got benched. Call it what you want. You
It's
got
true.
pulled.
Yeah.
You are a 19-year veteran and you did not finish a game on your fucking team debut.
Oh my
Jets
god.
fans, can we please take off the blinders now and see that that Aaron Rodgers will not bring you to a Super Bowl? This is what you're gonna get. If you
There's
get five
a lot of
wins,
pain.
it's honest.
It's going to be a lot of pain for Jets fans going forward. I mean, but this is again like they're ripping the Band-Aid off right now. Hey, look,
Right.
let's be honest.
You ain't ready.
When it comes to like levels of teams, like tiers of teams, right? The 49ers are way above the Jets league, right? The Jets are playing the Titans this week. They're kind of that's more along the same power level there. Jets are nowhere near the 49ers. They're more closer to the Titans than they are the Niners.
I think the Jets are closest to the Giants right now. That's the unfortunate fact.
Ooh, that's saying
I
something,
think they're
CP.
they're also riding in the same seam as like Carolina, Vegas. You know, pretty atrocious right now.
Uh,
Cleveland.
there's a lot of ugly right now in the NFL. There's a
There's a
lot of ugly
there's a
right
lot of
now.
ugly right now.
Oh man, but we don't want to talk about the ugly, Chris Palmer. We want to talk about week 2, and we want to talk about some good games week 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But sorry, Jets fans, we're not talking about your matchup against the Titans.
No, we are not. That is
So,
not going to be a good game.
so before we begin, let's we're only going to be doing 2 games today in today's episode. A little bit more to, for us to digest these 2 games, but for the next 5 weeks, we have people lined up for interviews. And the way that we're going to be doing that is they're going to pick a game to talk about, and we're going to pick a game to talk about. So we're only going to be talking about, whenever we have guests, we're going to be talking about 2 games per episode. Very easy. Very, very easy to do. So today, we're going to kind of give that a little practice run. Now, Chris Palmer, the game that we both chose a game, right? The first game that you chose was the Buccaneers and the Lions, and it, I wasn't thinking about that game, but then when you kind of planted the seed in my head, I'm like, ooh, that's gonna be a good game.
It's going to be such a good game.
That's gonna be a really good game. But I'll have you start us off, my friend.
So, like I said just before we started this week's slate of games, it's good for football when Detroit and Tampa are doing well. And both of these teams right now are hitting their stride and they're ready. So last year they played in the playoffs. They're going to play in the playoffs again.
That'd be
So
great. That'd be so great.
whatever the outcome of this game is, the loser is going to look at the other one and they're going to say, "See you in January," and they will be playing in the playoffs. This is going to be such a good game because they match up so well. You have two quarterbacks that are ready to just let the ball rip and go to their stars. Then you have two running backs on opposite sides that are ready to go downhill and force contact. You have crazy pass rushes on the Detroit side with Aiden Hutchinson. He's going to get after it. He's going to do his best to get to Baker Mayfield every chance he gets and make his day a living nightmare. And then you still have the veteran line that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Vita Vea still. So they're ready to come and be physical too. These are two hard-nosed physical teams that I truly cannot wait to see.
Oh man, what a matchup, man! This divisional round rematch, and this could be the NFC title game, depending on how it
I
goes.
would love it.
But both of their paths are going to be a little different going into the playoffs, right? And obviously, this is week one. Theoretically, they could just
Week
both
two.
lose. They could just not win more than 5 games, and we could be totally wrong about them.
You're not wrong. Not very likely.
Not very likely though, because just the way these two teams are built, personnel wise, they are built to contend. So let's look at the Bucs real quick. Who are their big players right now? They obviously still have Mike Evans, who's a Hall of Famer at this point, right? Like we could just say it, right? Mike
10
Evans is a Hall of
seasons,
Famer.
10,000-yard seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Chris Godwin is an absolute stud. I wouldn't say he's a Hall of Famer, but him and Mike Evans are a dynamic duo between the two of them. In fact, it was Chris Godwin that actually had majority of the sugar against Washington. He actually had over 100 yards and a touchdown, and Mike Evans had 60 yards, or 61 yards. But he still looked solid, right? But Baker Mayfield, right? He found the home. He found his home in Tampa, and he's not afraid to fling it, to throw it. He's What has impressed me with Baker Mayfield is he is now a decisive quarterback. He is confident in the plays that he's running because he has enough experience to go back in his mind and be like, okay, this did not work, this worked, this did not work. And he's just like hard fought, man. He just really envelops Tampa's culture of fuck it, let's just do it. If
Well,
there was
he
ever a motto,
envelops.
that's Tampa.
I agree. He envelops the idea of I'm gonna earn it every step of the way. He did not have a good start into this career.
No.
He went to an 0-16 Browns and made them win 7 games the next year. And everyone was saying he's not good enough to be a starting quarterback. He's been doubted every chance he has gotten since coming into the league until he got into Tampa. And now he's been embraced by the culture of Tampa. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans have embraced him as their quarterback, and they're ready to win.
I think for 100%, right? I totally agree with you. And I just want to build on that where I think Baker Mayfield needed to leave Cleveland in order to become the quarterback he is now. Because he needed to know how it felt when a whole city does not want you. They want the team, they don't want you. And they just want you out because they think that they can find better. And I think that him going to Carolina's been an absolute dumpster fire, right? And then he went to the
LA.
Rams for a little while. I think he won like a game in December, like a Thursday night game, like just getting to LA. And so he kind of got to see different cultures, different regimes, right? I mean, in what was it in Cleveland? He had who did he have?
As receivers?
No, head coach. Oh, Kitchens, Freddie Kitchens, in
And who
year
was the other
two.
guy who got Coach of the Year one year? Kevin
It's Kevin
Stefanski?
Stefanski, right? He's had Stefanski for a couple years. He had Freddie Kitchens prior to Kevin Stefanski,
Mm-hmm.
and then he also had
You had
what's
Matt
his
Nagy for a year? Didn't
Matt
Matt Nagy go to the
not
Browns?
not Mag Nagy, no, no, Matt Nagy was on Chicago.
Okay, so who was
It's like
the
a
other?
Hugh something, I forget offhand, but
I don't remember.
anyway, he's had different coaches when he was in Cleveland, right? And that's when the city kept wanting him, right? They wanted Baker Mayfield, right? And then they didn't want him anymore. And he realized that, oh shit, his job in the NFL is not as secure as he thought it was, right? And so he hit the free agent market. Tampa needed a quarterback. Let's do it. And I think that now he's like, I need to prove. I need to prove to everyone that I belong. And I think that since he's come to Tampa, he's playing like he has something to prove. And he says, I am exactly a first round pick. I am exactly the quarterback that you thought I am, and I'm going to prove it. And since coming to Tampa, he has proved it. I mean, 289 yards and 4 touchdowns in week 1. That is impressive shit. Like, that is really impressive shit, no matter who you play against. And I got to say, this matchup is so good because if there's ever one weakness on the Lions, right, it's their cornerbacks. Their safeties are great. Their linebackers are great. Their defensive line is great. It's their cornerbacks that are a little iffy there. And those matchups one on one, you're going to take Mike Evans one on one if they're
Yeah,
doing
knew
man
it.
coverage. We're going to be seeing a lot of zone coverage from the Lions, and that's fine. I think that's well to be expected. I think that this is going to be a very offensive heavy game, but they're going to have different means in which they're producing points. Bucs are going to be through the air. Lions are going to be on the ground. And because of that two-headed hydra that you were talking about earlier between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, you know what this kind of reminds me of? That one year, it was Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram on the Saints. Absolutely
Yeah.
tore up the league. Mark Ingram as the power back. You have that as David Montgomery as the power back. And then you have Jahmyr Gibbs coming in as the speed back, also like Alvin Kamara in that
Well,
same
it was
metaphor.
actually Baker Mayfield had his own two-headed hydra with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb.
Exactly,
But
yes.
if you want to think about going back in time with the Saints, you have Deuce McAllister and Reggie Bush.
It's going way back.
Going back to the early 2000s, you said Saints, I immediately went to Reggie Bush and Deuce McAllister.
uh, but a great tandem nonetheless. And how effective is it running the ball when you have another number one running back with you
Right.
as well?
When you're a zone running offense, it works great. And so for Detroit, they have mastered the zone offense.
Mm-hmm.
And to piggyback off of what you were saying about the Bucs over the air and Detroit over on the ground, their cornerbacks are usually the problem. Remember, they held Matt Stafford to under a 90 QB rating last week
I
on
know.
49 pass attempts.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
And
only 20 points, and
and
that was it.
I believe it was the guy who held Cooper Kupp for most of the game.
Mm.
Still only held him to about, I think it was 60 some odd yards receiving. So where I think Detroit is starting to adapt was their main flaw last year. I think their cornerbacks are starting to adapt and they're going to progress. This is going to be I think it's going to be almost the opposite, where Detroit tries to go through the air and Tampa tries to start running the ball to try to get through that breaking line of Detroit.
I could totally see that too, and I think you're right too. I think for the Lions' sake, for their cornerbacks, this is probably going to be one of the hardest tests all year for them.
I agree.
You have Chris Godwin on one side and Mike Evans on the other, and then if you forget Kate Otten as a tight end, he can definitely
Right.
slice and dice you.
He's a great blocking tight end too.
He's a great blocking tight end. Then you have Rashad White in the backfield. So and then obviously don't forget their offensive line too. You can still have Christian Wirfs still being one of the best
offensive linemen in the game.
Yeah, so there's a lot going for both of these teams, man, and they match up so well to each other. And I think too, they're both going to look at the film from the divisional round again, because for the most part, this is kind of the same teams that we saw last year between the Lions and the Bucs. A couple additions here and there, but the core is almost exactly the same. And it's obviously who do you kind of split? Who do you give the sugar to? And I think that the fact that both of these teams have multiple answers to those questions really shows how much depth they have as a team.
I agree wholeheartedly. I do know of one receiver that the Lions picked up. I believe it was in the draft. That's their new fly guy.
What, Jameson Williams?
Yes,
They actually picked him up 2 years ago, but he was suspended because of that gambling thing.
that's right, for the
And then
gambling thing.
he came back last year, but they didn't really throw to him the rest of the year. So now, I mean, he had, what was it? He had 5 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown. That bomb touchdown that he had, and I think now it's like if he could be the first round receiver that the Lions thought he could be, um, this is going to be scary for the rest of the league because you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta,
Mir Gibbs
Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery, and slinging
and then
it
Jared
from
Goff.
Jared Goff, who plays statistically just like Matt Stafford. And so it's like it's crazy too because I don't think Jared Goff, like since coming to Detroit, he's played exactly much like Baker Mayfield has. He has something to prove, and he just like in more time, obviously since Baker's been in Tampa. Baker was only there last year. Goff's been there for a couple years with Detroit. He's proven in that time that, oh my God, he is an elite quarterback in this league, especially in the NFC. Like AFC stacked on quarterbacks, right? But if you look at the NFC, Jared Goff, he may be one of the top 10 quarterbacks, maybe in the league. You can make the argument.
Currently, probably.
And it's crazy that we don't hold them to that high standard. But man, like this offense is lethal. This defense is lethal. And man, this game is going to be amazing to watch. It's going to be a playoff game, week 2.
Possible game of the week?
Shit, I mean, it has my vote so far. But, I mean, we do have a lot of other games, great games this week, too. I was going to say, CP, what are your final thoughts on this game?
Just absolute playoff game, week 2 of the year. There will be another round of this come late in the winter. If it's the NFC Championship, big hype. It is good for football right now that these two teams are hitting their strides.
Absolutely. 100%. And it's so great because they just have so much energy to them. In Tampa, in Detroit, there's just so much energy from these teams, and can't wait, honestly.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to the second game that we wanted to talk about. Potential game of the week, but I think the first game may take it. But we've seen this matchup before in the playoffs. It is the Bengals versus the Chiefs, week 2. Now, CP, I think the big thing that you and I notice is that this is in week 2. This is not later on in the year. This is fresh out the box. And I think that it's set up because the Bengals have not been good historically the first couple weeks of the season. And I think that the schedule makers looked at that and be like, well, we want them to meet again in the playoffs so that this game it doesn't matter so much, right? Because sometimes it's not necessarily who you play, but when you play it, right? This game would be obviously prime time if this was like week 16, right? Because that determines seeding, determines everything, right? Not that this doesn't matter now, but they made it intentional to have it so early on in the season because they expect that rematch in the playoffs. And it could happen, right? But the Bengals, let's look at week 1 for the Bengals. They did not look good at all. Their offense was it hurt themselves, man. They had
non-existent.
They had 2 costly fumbles. One was on the goal line, and then you also lost it on a turnover on downs, and they just could not move against the Patriots. Against the Patriots, I mean, yeah, this is not
Patriots. Let's be fair. It's a new Patriots.
These are new Patriots, right? This is Gerard Mayo's
They're
Patriots.
tough.
They're tough. This is not Bill Belichick's Patriots. And so it was very interesting to just see that the Bengals really shot themselves in the foot time and time again. And I think they really Jamar Chase not participating in practices that definitely hurt them as well. The absence of Joe Mixon because Joe Mixon's been there for Joe Burrow's entire career as a Cincinnati Bengal. So now you lose a key focal point there, and the Bengals are. A lot of people have faith in the Bengals to make the playoffs, and rightfully so. But they have a very tough uphill battle to climb the rest of this year, especially not only in week 2, but also just the AFC North division is a bloodbath. You and I know this more than anyone, right? And so the Bengals, if you want to be a part of that, man, you got to shed some blood. And I mean, hell, if you shed blood, it's not going to get all over the Chiefs jerseys. They wear red anyway.
See, I wish that the schedule, like, I wish the idea of the schedule makers was the truth when it came to the games. It's not when you play them. It's not who you play. It's when you play them, right? That I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to losing games right now, in terms of competition, if you fall more than 3 games behind, you can consider your season more or less not reaching the playoffs simply because of how competitive the league is. Again, the entire league was split by a half a game last year.
Yeah.
So the Bengals going into a Kansas City Chiefs team that wins 90% of its games in the month of September. 0-1? That is not a good look. It's not a good look. And again, like I said in the recap, Joe Burrow looks like he's still having some soreness in that throwing hand.
Yes, that is a big concern right
That is
there.
big. That is a big concern, and a lot of people try to undermine the idea that he has been hurt every year since being drafted. And injuries that have taken him out for extended periods of time. Alongside, you now lost Joe Mixon, you lost your downhill runner. And now the man that came out of college with you, Jamar Chase, is getting into contract disputes. So that's hurting chemistry between him and the rest of the locker room. It could be causing friction between you two. On top of physical injury, there's inner working issues that are also hurting the Bengals right now, going into a very hot Kansas City team. I don't know if you smell it in the air, but the stink of Cincinnati seems like it's starting to come back a little bit.
I believe me, mate. I smell it. I welcome it too because fuck the Bengals. But
yeah, but at the same time, there are players on the Bengals that you want to see succeed. Jamar
yes.
Chase and Joe Burrow being two of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but again, injuries seem that it's going to start becoming a hindrance to Joe Burrow's career's longevity.
It's I agree with you 100%, 100%, and the inadequacies of Cincinnati. There are layers to it. There's a lot of layers to Cincinnati
that go back decades.
Right? Where you have a franchise that historically is very cheap and does not like to spend a lot of money on players, right? And so it's free agency is typically when you see players leave Cincinnati, not typically go to Cincinnati. And they did have some free agent acquisitions, right? But sometimes it's hard to replace a player one for one, right? It's very hard. Like Zach Moss, their new running back, is a different player than Joe Mixon. He's not a bad player, right? He's just different, right? And this is his first year in Cincinnati, right? So it's like players wanting to come to Cincinnati, right? Players staying in Cincinnati for whatever reason, money issues and then when they do stay, the quality of their time in Cincinnati. Like you said, Joe Burrow's been hurt every year since he's been in the league. And when he's on the field and he has a healthy season, we've seen what he's able to do. He's made 2 AFC title games and he's won 1. And that's very impressive, right? But that's you want more, right? You don't want to just hang your hat on that and say like, we made it to a Super Bowl a couple years ago, right? Like the league moves fast. The league moves fast. The league is now talking about a Kansas City three-peat since Cincinnati's last Super Bowl appearance. So it's time moves very fast in the NFL, and the Bengals that were a couple years ago are not these same Bengals, right? They have a very tough uphill battle. What was it last year? Joe Burrow was hurt, right? In that same time, Lamar won his second MVP. And it's the league moves fast. And that's the thing is like if teams that are not adapting properly in personnel, in coaching, in medicine, in every aspect of being a team, if you're not moving forward and if you're just stagnating, you're falling behind. And we see it in the Chiefs. Just look at the matchup against the Chiefs. The Chiefs every year since Mahomes has come into the league. Actually, no, since Andy Reid has taken over the Chiefs, they have adapted year in year out to be competitive by different means every year. And they're always in the mix. When the Chiefs were under Alex Smith and Andy Reid, they were a competitive team. They were a very competitive team. You added Mahomes, you added Tyreek, you added all these different players to come in, and now like they are a team that has adapted to the changing times. And we see it in their receiving core year in and year out. It doesn't matter who their receivers are. They're going to find the receivers to get the job done and win it. And running backs, yeah, that's no problem. We're just going to draft Isaiah Pacheco, who's already a fucking elite running back in the 5th round.
Right.
So, we're weak at cornerback. We're going to draft Trent McDuffie, who's a fucking all pro.
Who's out of his mind.
Yeah. So, and now Chris Jones, you can make the argument, and I think I've brought this up to you. Like you can make the argument now, since Aaron Donald has retired. Chris Jones is the best defensive player in the league at the moment.
It's arguable
You
because
could
they're
make,
again.
yeah, you can make the argument, but it's like, if not one, he's up there.
He's top 5.
Yeah,
And it's not close.
yeah, and and I got to give him his flowers. He had a great game against the Ravens. He absolutely just manhandled Tyler Linderbaum and that offensive line. So I got to give a shout out to Chris Jones. He is an anchor on that team, and his presence should not be overlooked. But man,
Let's not
it's
forget who his older brother is. Chandler Jones.
That's right.
And John Bones Jones of the UFC. The three of them are brothers.
Are they still active? Is John Bones Jones still active?
Um,
Is he retired?
no, he's not retired officially.
Okay,
He just hasn't fought. He's
gotcha.
gotten his whole outside shit is why he hasn't fought.
Fair enough.
Steroids, other things.
You know.
Do the research, you'll find out.
It's worth the Google. But man, I guess my point to the Bengals is you got to be adapting with the times, and let's see how you are adapting to the times. And this is a good, because the Chiefs are now. The Chiefs are right here, right now. They're going to go against the best team in the league, and it's going to be the toughest matchup you'll face all year. But you get it out early, and I think that's the schedule makers kind of did you a favor doing that. But starting 0-2,
They're not doing any favors.
That's not doing you any favors. So
The schedule makers are doing no favors this year.
but there's a big difference between if they keep it really close to the Chiefs, okay, there's something there. But if they lose bad like they did against New England, I promise you the Chiefs are scoring more than 16 points, and it's not going to be pretty.
It's if they don't match 27, they're going to get blown out by 40. If you don't get in Mahomes' face and hold him to under 30, you're going to get blown out by 40. It's just that's been the formula for years. You have to hold him under 30 to even have a chance at winning. If you do not hold him under 30, he's going to put up 40. It's just what it is. And the Bengals, you need to know how to protect Joe Burrow, and you still have not figured it out. He was sacked 3 times in week 1. 3 times on week 1 without a main pass rusher in New England.
Nope.
And now you're going to go into a hot Kansas City with a stellar Chris Jones ready.
Yep. And
I pray for you.
this is not going to be an easy game for the Bengals, but you know, the Bengals have surprised the Chiefs before. So I'm not giving them no chance, but I'm giving them a puncher's chance to
Right.
go in
Any
and
given Sunday, anything can happen.
any given Sunday, anything can happen. Hell, the Bengals dismantled the 49ers last year when they were on a losing streak.
Right.
And then they kicked it back into gear. And then they look good. But hey, let's see how let's see if you are who we think you are.
Let's see if you are who you've been saying you
Let's see Joe Shiesty.
are. Bring back the ice cold Joe. Come on.
Oh shit. CP, any final thoughts on this game?
This game should be exciting one way or the other. Again, the Bengals are going to have to really kick it into high gear, and they're going to have to play on a different platform to answer the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
If the Bengals of Week 1 show up, we could see the first shutout of the year.
It very well could be that way. Man, I hope this is a close game because Bengals Chiefs that's been a fun matchup for the last couple of years. So I just hope this is a very close game.
Okay.
So with that being said, those are the two games that we wanted to talk about this week. So many great games. So Chris Palmer, are you ready to make some picks?
Yeah, let's make some picks.
Let's make some
Go for
picks. Let's make some picks, baby. Let's start on the Thursday night game. The Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins. Who you got?
In Miami, I'm going to go Dolphins. Dolphins are going to take this one.
Okay, I'm gonna go Bills on this one. Bills have really just kind of had Miami's number for the last couple of years. It's been very tough, but it's a great matchup to see regardless. And again, when they play each other, this is in Miami week 2. That means they play Buffalo later on when it gets a lot colder. So keep schedule makers. We see you. Let's move on to the Sunday slate of games, starting with the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. Who you got, Chris Palmer?
In Minnesota, I'm going to give San Francisco another win.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold is not playing the Giants defense. He is not going to show out like he did last week.
Yeah, we're not going to see all pro Sam Darnold against the 49ers. I'm taking the 49ers as well. I'm interested to see how this game's going to go, but I'm going to take the 49ers to win. Let's move on to New England, where Seattle has to go to the East Coast to play the New England Patriots. Seahawks, Patriots. Who you got, Chris Palmer?
Give me Seattle, but this is going to be a lot closer than I think people are going to think. I'm interested to see how Gerard Mayo can form this team.
I'm very interested in this game as well. I'm going to give this one to the Patriots. I liked what I saw.
Two upsets in 2 weeks.
I think that they will because of they had a really strong ground game last week with Ramondre Stevenson. He looks healthy again. He's been the workhorse for them for the last couple of years. I'm going to give New England this one.
Okay.
Let's move on to the New York Giants versus the Washington Commanders. I'm going to take the Commanders. I liked what I saw out of Jaden Daniels. It was not pretty by any means, but going against Tampa week 1 is typically tough. And hey, he might look like an all-pro against this Giants defense, so I'm taking the Commanders.
I'm going to take the Commanders, and I think I'm going to double down in that he will have an all-pro game against that Giants defense. It's not going to take a lot to look good on playing against that Giants team this year. And I think Jaden Daniels has more than enough to look great against that team.
On the same topic, Chargers versus the Panthers.
Oh my god. I'm going to give it to the Chargers, and this is, again, it's not going to be pretty for the Carolina Panthers.
I saw on Pat McAfee that they said that they're selling tickets for $1.80 in Carolina, and they can't sell
and they
tickets.
can't sell them.
$1.80.
Oh my god! And we thought Jacksonville was going to wind up in London.
Holy fuck, bro!
Could you
Give me the
imagine the turn of events if Carolina wound up in London instead of Jacksonville?
Holy shit, David Tepper, you got some splaining to do, my friend. You got some splaining to do. Give me the Chargers, man. Carolina, you're a dumpster fire.
You're about to get embarrassed by the Chargers.
Oh man. Okay. Let's move to the Superdome in Jerry World, where the Saints play the Cowboys. Who you got, Chris Palmer?
Um, Again, I'm give me Dallas. You know they usually win at home early in the year, but I think this is going to be another really close game. I don't think Derek Carr is going to throw for 4 touchdowns and 200 yards. Um, but I think he could have a very good game. So eyes on Derek Carr this year.
Yeah. I'm gonna take the Cowboys as well. Dallas typically does good against the mid-range teams to the lower end teams, so I think Dallas will take this game pretty convincingly. Let's move to Green Bay, where the Colts play the Packers, but no Jordan Love this game. Malik Willis will be starting.
Now, you're gonna have to give me the Colts for that one, but I want to keep an eye on Malik Willis. I was a fan of him coming into the draft. I liked what I saw out of him in Tennessee. Um, I think he is in a proper situation where he could probably win some games. So eyes on both teams going into this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Colts as well. I think the Colts are just gonna keep putting up points on the board, man. And I think that Green Bay they're going to be struggling to put points on the board. Very simple enough, but I'm gonna take the Colts to beat the Packers. Let's move on to Jacksonville, where the Browns play the Jacksonville Jaguars. Who you got for this one, Chris Palmer?
Jimmy Jacksonville, they're playing in Florida in the middle of the afternoon. Cleveland does not like playing in the heat.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Jacksonville with this one. Even though they lost last week against Miami, there was still a lot of good things out of Jacksonville. Obviously, they need to improve, but a lot of good takeaways for the Jacks. Not so much for Cleveland. Okay, let's move on to Tennessee, where the New York Jets take on the Tennessee Titans. Chris Palmer, who you got?
Um, Give me the Jets. I think the Titans are going to beat themselves again. I'm not a big fan of Will Levis. I'm not sold on him. I think this is a good turnaround game for the Jets offense. Maybe they'll be able to flip the switch and actually turn on a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Um, I'm gonna take I'm gonna take the Tennessee Titans on this one. Um, I don't like these two teams in particular, but I was a lot of alarm bells were ringing for the Jets on that Monday night, and I had a lot more questions with them than I did with the Titans. Titans, I kind of have an expectation for, which is low. Jets kind of meet that expectation as well. I'm going to take the Titans for this one.
Right.
Let's move on to what could be the game of the week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Detroit Lions. Chris Palmer, this is going to be a great game. Tell me who you got for this one.
In Detroit, that 12th man is going to be menacing. Give me Detroit, but it's going to be a one score game.
I'm taking Detroit as well, and I'm saying the same thing. I think it's going to be very close.
That 12th man in Detroit is going to be menacing.
Whew, absolutely. And to think that's a 1 o'clock game.
Right.
The Las Vegas Raiders coming to Baltimore to play the Ravens.
I think that should be a pretty telltale win for you guys. Vegas is in shambles. You guys should be able to beat them up like they were, like you just come off of a bad loss.
Yeah, I'm taking the Ravens as well. I think we win this one pretty convincingly.
Yeah, it was probably one of the most convincing wins of the week.
Um, Arizona and the Los Angeles Rams. Who you got?
Give me Arizona. I'm going to go
Ooh.
Arizona for the upset. I
Ooh.
liked what I saw last week. I want to see a little bit more out of Marvin Harrison Jr. This is going to be an interesting one. This could be a sleeper cell, really good game.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep my eye on this one. I'm gonna take Arizona as well. Actually, Arizona typically does better in the beginning of the season than
Oh.
the end of season. Typically around the Call of Duty line, but I'll take Arizona to beat the Rams. Didn't think the Rams would go 0-2, but hey, let's
See
see.
what happens.
Yeah. Cincinnati versus Kansas City. I'm gonna take the Chiefs on this one. Uh, again, Andy Reid, month of September. Chiefs are on a roll. They're hot. Xavier Worthy looks worthy. Um, and Bengals typically struggle early on, so I'm gonna take the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Chiefs. It's in Arrowhead. It's in the middle of September. It's 93% of the time the Chiefs win that regardless. On top of a Cincinnati Bengals that's coming in totally beaten and bruised. Kansas City should win this one with no problems.
Still hoping for a close game on this one. Still hoping for a close one. Um, this next game, I almost wanted to talk about it, but I figured we'd save it for another time. But the Steelers against the Broncos. This is a very interesting matchup. First of all, who you got?
Dude, this one's going to be a fist fight. I almost wanted to talk this one too, especially after Justin Fields was confirmed to be the starter for Week 2. Um, Give me Pittsburgh. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I think we're going to put some points on the board, and I don't think Bo Nix is expecting the pass rush coming from us. I don't think he's embraced a pass rush like that yet.
Yeah, no, you can't practice for T.J. Watt. T.J.
That
Watt,
defense entirely.
the
Nick Holcomb,
yeah,
T.J.
the
Watt,
whole
Alex
defense
Highsmith.
is absolutely insane. But like T.J. Watt in particular, he's the anchor of that team,
For
and it's like
sure.
you cannot practice for that because it can't be replicated in practice unless you have J.J. Watt on the.
Right, unless you have another Watt that's an elite pass rush, you can't prepare for him.
Yeah,
He's
so
going to get home. It's just what it is.
I'm gonna take the Steelers to win this one. I think they give the ball a little bit more to Najee and Jalen Warren, and good things will happen. Just give them their good touches, get pressure off Justin Fields, and make it a little easier for him as the game goes on. But I think you guys win this one. Let's move on to the Sunday night primetime game. Woo! The Chicago Bears against the Houston Texans.
Chicago Bears don't belong on prime time. They're not ready to be on
They
prime
want it.
time.
That's
Playing
why they're on week
Houston at
2.
home. Playing Houston at home in prime time. The Texans are going to steamroll them. It is going to be a steamroll Sunday night primetime game.
Yeah, there's a segment on I forget which network, but it's contenders or pretenders, and
The Bears are pretenders.
there's out of these two teams, one of them's a pretender, one of them's a contender. I'm taking the Texans. It's the Bears. They're pretenders.
They
And
don't belong there.
finally, the Atlanta Falcons play the Philadelphia Eagles Monday night. Kirk Cousins, fresh out the box, prime time. God bless you, man. The schedule makers did not do you any favors.
He's another one that looks like he's still feeling pain from his Achilles injury. You know, if you
Yeah.
watch the highlights of the Falcons game week 1, he was walking around very gingerly on that leg before snapping the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the idea of him being back too soon has started to come around. But I'm gonna take the Falcons for the upset on this one. Um, I feel the Eagles' defense gives up a lot of yards, and the Falcons' offense is primed to gain a lot of yards. I think this should be an interesting game, but I think the Falcons are going to come away with the win.
Wow, Battle of the Birds. I'm actually kind of surprised at that. I'm taking the Eagles. I think their offense is looks impeccable. Their defense still a lot of question marks. Um, Atlanta, man, this is a tough week 2 game to come to, especially coming back from the Steelers. But I just hope Kirk Cousins just looks good. That's it. I just want him to look good. I don't want him to look hurt or look old.
He looked hurt week 1.
He looked hurt. So I hope he's healed up properly because there's going to be a lot of eyes on him and the Falcons on Monday night. So with that, that is our week 2 picks for the season. We are really excited for these next couple weeks. Chris Palmer, you want to tell everyone what we got stored these next couple weeks?
Well, like he was saying, from week 3 to week 8, we have an interview every week. So we will be talking 2 games for the next 5 weeks. One will be one that we of our choice. One will be one of our guest choice. So please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Please message us if you want to get on for any time after week 8. We have most of the second half of the season open, save for 1 or 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Just message either myself or John to come on, and we will schedule you, and we will have a good time. But until then, here we go.
We'll see you next week.